Okay, so we're back and we're going to make a particle system and a light. So we just basically need to focus on this engine area. First thing I'm going to do is we had this material selected and we had it locked. So I'm going to unlock that. So now that I click on the inspector, we can see other things. That means that we'll actually see our particle system working. And the other thing I'm going to do is just to this. I just dragged this in, so this isn't actually set at world 0. If I just go to this little gear wheel here in the transform area, I just hit reset and that will basically reset it all back to 000, which is good. I'm now going to go into this hierarchy and I am going to just select the ship player and I'm going to say create an effect and I'm going to create a particle system, and that means it was going to drop it in to that hierarchy, so that's now part of the ship, and we have a particle system. Yay, look at that. So I'm just kind of move the emitter, which is this part here, closer to where the engine is, and then what we need to do, and I'm just going to set it up so it's sort of looking down on it so I can kind of get a sense of what it should look like. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to set up a few values. Now this isn't going to be a lengthy tutorial on how to set up particles. I'm just going to play with a few of these values and get something I'm reasonably happy with. You can spend a bit more time doing this. There's some of these things should be fairly straightforward. Basically this thing outputs sprites and then we want to control how those sprites behave, so we can add delays, all sorts of stuff. We can add we can give it a value for how long these things stay alive for. We can change how fast they come out at the beginning. We can change the size of the sprites, so we can make them massive or tiny, and we can change things like their start colour. So there's loads we can do, the amount of them, all that kind of stuff. Where we're going to do the work though is down in here. So one of the things we want to do, or I want to do, is I want to have, I want to play with the shape. Although I may end up getting rid of the shape altogether. If we switch shape off, we end up with, because we're going to see this from top down, we end up with something which is fairly straightforward like that. I think we probably don't want them to live as long as that. So, die very quickly. Just keep the start speed about there. So we're getting something which is basically getting us this, which is cool. Okay, so that's more or less what we're after. So what we're going to do is we want them to tail off a bit and we want them to change colour as they do it. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to sort the colour out. So if we go to colour over lifetime, switch it on, and then click in this area, we'll get this little box. This is basically set to be a gradient, so that's good. So if I click on it again, then what we can do is we can set the colour. So this is the colour of it coming out here, and this is what it ends up being. So if I set this to double clicking on it, I'm going to set it to kind of like a blue engine colour, something like that. Hit OK, and then it goes out to be a white one. But what I want to do is I want it to kind of go grey in between. So I'm going to click on here. And I'm going to set this to be like a grey colour, I think. Okay, it's not quite doing what I want it to do. Let's get that. That's it. That's what I'm after. So that's what we're going for. It's blue, then it's grey, and then becomes white. Tip. Okay, so that's cool. Now what we want to do is I want to get it so that it tails off, or it changes the shape a bit. So I'm going to do that using the size over lifetime. So if we click on this, you can see that it has a curve. So if I click on this, then we can edit this curve. So what I want is I want it to start off being a bit fatter and then become essentially tail off into nothing. We go with something like that to start with. Oh. These presets to start with, let's go with that. So, restart it so that we can see what it looks like. And essentially we're getting this type of effect, which I'm just going to scale down ever so slightly. Something nice and subtle. And maybe move it out from there. So if I lock this, then what I can do is I can actually see what it looks like. Move it down a little bit. So I'm going to go with something like that. It's quite stylized. It's interesting enough. So that's my particle, and that's attached to the ship. So if I move the ship, what comes with it? It's cool. Oh, sugar. I've got that locked. And select the ship and reset the ship. Okay, so that's that part done. The next part is I want to add a light to sort of go along with that. So I'm going to grab the ship again. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a point light and a point light to the same area, and scale it down a bit. I'm going to change its colour for something that's kind of like that blue. Increase its intensity so that it's lighting up the back of the ship. Light out a little bit. Okay, so again, if I move the ship, they're all part of the same part. Okay, so that's a good chunk of that sorted. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we can actually see our animation on this. So we've got our animator controller here, but it doesn't have anything for playing the file. So if I go to component with the ship selected, go to component, and if I go to miscellaneous and go to animation, I can then load this clip in. I'm going to find my clip. It's here. Model selected. Lock it. Put this into here. See where our camera is. Can set this up a bit more. It would be if we were. See, the animation's not playing. Now it's throwing up this error down at the bottom. Animation clip role used by animation component must be marked as legacy. So this is the thing I was talking about in the other video. So if we go back to our ship model and we go to the rig and we set this to legacy and hit apply, then we can see our animation. We see that again. There it is. So that means we can now drive that, we can use that animation. We can in a script or whatever way you're doing it with your coders, they'll be able to trigger that animation, and you'll get your barrel roll.